What's up YouTube? I'm Mike. Today I'm back with another bodybuilding content video. I'm feeling substantially better today, and so I woke up this morning and took another 8X to control my very high estrogen that I've unfortunately allowed to befall me, and decided to make a video titled Everything You Need to Know About How to Manage Your Estrogen and Prolactin on Cycle. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, why would we listen to you? You just had crashed prolactin and E2 that was 2 times the top end of the reference range. That's exactly why you should listen to me. You should be listening to me because I have been going through this challenge for years, and I have now come full circle. So we're going to go through the basics and how you can understand the amount of estrogen that your body makes and what compounds will cause that. We're going to go through the basics of how and why your body will produce prolactin and what will cause that. We're going to get into the science of it, and I'm going to teach you how to prevent having problems in cycles of your own. These are things that I got laxed in, having had so much experience. That's one of the things that's very easy to do in bodybuilding, and it's happening to men all over. Like I cannot tell you the number of guys who have come to my videos and sworn that they did not have high E2, that they did not need aromatase inhibitors, and then I challenged them to go out and get their blood work done, and like me, they thought they were either low or normal and ended up being 2 times the top end of the reference range. High estrogen in men is absolutely at pandemic levels right now. It is probably the scariest pandemic that we are actually facing in our time. And so today is going to be a primer going from the basics because of what I just said. Because the fact of the matter is, I've got 26-year steroid veterans coming to me going, holy shit, you were right. My E2 is high. So this video is for everyone. No matter how versed you may think you are in steroid pharmacology and running cycles, chances are you have probably missed the boat more than once along the way because of the fact that these nasty little hormones are very, very good at emulating one another. And that's what got me into all this trouble recently. All the signs and symptoms that my body was feeling was telling me that I had low estrogen. And then Kowalser, who has extensive medical knowledge and has studied these compounds from the medical perspective, kept telling me, but the paper says otherwise, bro. Like, the science really says otherwise. Like, yeah, you could be a total genetic freak, but the statistical probability that you are misinterpreting what your body is feeling is considerably higher than that you are some absolute genetic freak, which is what I would have had to have been to have had crashed my estrogen to the degree that I thought I did. So to try to spare all of you and my audience from going through this, we're going to get into everything you need to know to manage your estrogen. Now, for some of you who don't like class, like, you guys got to take a modafinil or something, right? Like, do whatever you need to do. Get your Bang energy drink out. Try to pay attention. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. I'm going to try to talk quickly, and I might even cut this video up and put words and diagrams on your screen. I've been thinking about dropping some more ASMR sounds into a video, so maybe you're going to see this video come out in a little different fashion than my rant videos, and maybe a little bit more chopped up with some details. We're just going to see, because like I said, I don't plan these. I'm going to try to make this video a little bit more entertaining than Vigorous Steve. I love Vigorous Dude. He's got a lot of great information, but I can't watch the guy anything less than 2 speed. So, so starting from the base, we're primarily talking about men here. These things are true of women, but to a lesser degree. Right now, I'm talking to the guys in the audience. So if you're natty, any man in the audience, you have testosterone and you have estrogen in your body. Your body technically does not make any of its own estrogen, though I think there might be a couple caveats to that. But 99.9%, give or take, of the estrogen that you will ever have in your body is made in the steroidogenesis pathway. So cholesterol is converted through all of these enzymes into various different hormones or pro-hormones of other hormones. So cholesterol becomes like pregnenolone, allopregnenolone, androstenedione gets turned into, there's this whole cascade. I made an entire video about this. We're not going to go into it today. If you want to look up the steroidogenesis pathway, go crazy. It's very interesting to read. It shows you all of the hormones that you get from cholesterol and how they terminate with like DHT, estrogen, and testosterone and progesterone, I think, are the terminal hormones. One of the first process that we're going to be talking about today is going to be the first thing you're going to likely come into contact with if you're smart. So if you're smart and you've gone from being natty to being on TRT, smart move. Or you're natty and you're going to do your first cycle, but you're a smart guy, so you're not going to run 3 compounds out the gate. You're just going to blast some testosterone. If that happens to be you, congratulations, you are starting your journey in the proper way. And what you are going to find is that when you start injecting exogenous testosterone, you will aromatize estrogen. You will do it. Some of you will think that you're not. Some of you will come on here and tell me a bunch of stupid fucking stories about how you don't need an AI. You almost certainly do, but I'm not here to argue that point with you. I'm here to explain how it works, so maybe you will better understand why you need it. So we have an enzyme that's called aromatase. An aromatase is kind of like a big cock block to some degree. And we need it, admittedly, and if you don't have enough of it, you get problems, but it's kind of an annoyance. So when you inject testosterone, this is the number that is reflected when you go get your testosterone level checked. You'll see, hey, check it out, I've got 1,500, 1,800 nanograms per deciliter of total testosterone. That is all of the testosterone that is in your system total. Then you will notice that you have a free testosterone number. This number is usually considerably lower than that free T, that total T number. So for 1,500 nanograms, you might have 500 nanograms of free testosterone. The free testosterone is the testosterone that is free to do all of the exciting things that you want your body to do. One of the things that can happen to total testosterone that's floating around your system, is it can get bound, it can get attacked. It's an attack. Aromatase will come along and attach itself to the testosterone molecule and it will convert it into estrogen. So aromatase is also called estrogen synthetase or estrogen synthase. I'm going to hit you with the number right now. File this away in your memory. Maybe I'll put it on your screen. This is going to be important. My buddy Kowalser likes to weigh the pros and cons, as has Bigger Steve weigh the pros and cons of Aromacin versus Arimidex. We both have very strong opinions on these two drugs. Aromatase is CYP19A. That's what aromatase is. It is a member of the cytochrome P450 subfamily, which is a monooxygenase which are monooxygenases that catalyze reactions involved in steroidogenesis. You're already done, right? You're like, Mike, no more science. We don't care. All you do care about is that aromatase has a couple of functions. It can convert androstenedione into estrone, and it can convert testosterone into 7-beta estradiol. Now, when aromatase converts testosterone into 7-beta estradiol, a number of things happens. One is that you lose the testosterone that's get converted. So if you're injecting 500 milligrams a week of testosterone and you're not taking an AI, and you're like, hey, look at me, I don't need an AI. Ha ha ha. John Jewett told me that I should take as much testosterone as I can take without needing an AI. And when I need an AI, that's when you cut off the testosterone. John Jewett's a fucking idiot. So, first of all, you can't take 500 milligrams of testosterone per week and not need an AI. Anybody who thinks that they do has been lied to, and you're not getting your blood work checked. So if you are on a test-only cycle and you're taking 500 milligrams of testosterone a week, go get your blood work checked and you're going to have high estrogen, I guarantee it. Because You have so much exogenous testosterone in your system that what your body is trying to do is to prevent you from building too much muscle. It wants to create this homeostasis. It is used to converting some percentage of your normal testosterone level into estrogen, and that keeps you in the physiological range. Depending on the test you're getting, the physiological range of E2 in a man is between 0, don't do that, and 29 picograms per milliliter of estradiol. Now, again, it depends on ranges. Some ranges will be like 5 to 41. More or less, you want to try to target the middle end of the range. Personally, I like high normal for certain parts of my physiology. Like, for example, if I'm trying to have the best possible relationship with my girl and I want to be real clingy and cuddly and emotionally available, have crazy libido, on the high end of normal. So if the range is 5 to say 45, I would be looking for like 30. That's where I would want to be. If I was wanting to dial in my estrogen to a degree that I'm going to be a little bit less, I'm not going to be so attached to my girl. I'm going to be a little bit more focused on me and my bodybuilding goals, and I'm probably going to be a little bit drier and a little bit more aggressive, then I would be targeting the middle to slightly lower range of middle. Somewhere 20, maybe 15 probably is going to feel pretty good for you if you're single, or if being dry and peeled is your major objective. The less estrogen you have in your system, the better. Guys who go into contest prep will crash their estrogen in the toilet to get as much body water off of their frames as possible to look as good as possible on stage. You can't do that. You will feel like shit if you do. We'll get to that in a minute. So aromatase is an enzyme that is going to come along and it's going to convert your testosterone into estradiol, into 7-beta estradiol, which is what is going to cause a whole host, it's what it can cause. It can cause a whole host of side effects in various men. So in me, for example, taking you back to my beginner days, I started on TRT through Royal Men's Medical Center. You can use code MikeFit at sign up. They will give you a 6-month discount on your TRT. They will give you everything you need, your needles, your injectable. They're giving in clomiphene right now. It comes in a kit delivered to your door once every 2 months. They're great people. I've been with them for years. RoyalMedicalCenters.com. Use code MikeFit. When I started with them, they gave me 200 milligrams of testosterone, cypionate per week, along with 500 IUs of HCG twice a week. And within the first 2 weeks, I noticed that my nipples, that are usually very teeny tiny, had suddenly gotten bigger. That's all that had happened. My nipple size, the areola size, had slightly increased. And my wife had noticed, like, why are your nipples bigger? And I was like, probably because I'm getting gyno. When they prescribe you the testosterone, they will give you the kind of cookie cutter aromatase inhibitor protocol. So we have drugs that stop the action of the aromatase enzyme. These are called aromatase inhibitors, AIs. AIs are your friends. Do not listen to anyone in the community that tells you that AIs are bad for you. They are absolutely not in any constructive way bad for you. What is definitively bad for you is having high or low estrogen levels for extended periods of time. High estrogen levels can lead to prostate cancer in men. It can and possibly will lead to the growth of male breast tissue. It can cause you to retain water, which can cause your blood pressure to skyrocket. You look like shit. It'll cause you to cry at like cat videos on Instagram. Lots of terrible nasty shit. It gobbles up your steroid cycles. They don't feel as strong. You don't feel as aggressive. You start noticing you like to wear Birkenstocks a lot. You start growing your hair long. You start going to feminist rallies. This is what happens when you have high estrogen. You probably start voting for like leftist parties. It's really nasty, terrible shit that you guys don't ever want to have to deal with. And so, but the problem is that if your estrogen is too low, then you will lose your sexual functionality. You will lose all interest in women. Your skin will dry out. Your joints will dry out. You'll be tired all the time. And your exercises will likely not be for shit. These are the symptoms that can happen to you. There are a myriad of reasons, of which I just fucking found out the hard way, that you may get all or none of these symptoms. You could be walking around with an estrogen level 2 times the top end of the reference range and absolutely not know it, not be crying, not have gyno, not have 50 pounds of water bloat. I just did it. I could not believe it. I argued for a week and a half with Kowalser, telling him there was no way it was fucking possible that I had high E2 because I had 0 symptoms of it other than my D game was broken. That was probably due to the prolactin. He was right. I was wrong. I was not accurately feeling my body, and that is why I'm making this video for you. Because if you were starting out in the beginning, it is very easy to accurately feel your body. If the only compound you have in the mix is testosterone, you will probably be able to tell that your estrogen is rising. Within the first 2 weeks of TRT, I noticed that my nipples had gotten bigger and then they started getting slightly, like they are today. Because see, my estrogen's coming back. So this is probably about what my nipples were looking like 2 weeks in. They are puffy and it's sensitive in a gross way. It's like normally for men, if you're like me, we forget we have nipples. If you suddenly start noticing your nipple, like it touches your shirt and you feel it, you bump up against the counter and it hurts, you have gyno. You should not be feeling nipple sensitivity. If the areolas get bigger and you start to feel any puffiness and tenderness, this will be followed by a lump behind your nipple. That is gynecomastia. That is the swelling of either the glandular tissue or the deposition of adipose fat behind your breast tissue on your pec. You do not want this. If you catch this early enough, it can be shrunk or reduced. Once you have gyno like I do, it is irreparable with anything other than surgery. When I was sick in the hospital, they did a CT scan of my thoracic cavity and they could see the gyno lumps on the scan. I have permanent swollen glands behind each one of my nipples. They never go away. So if I get really, really peeled, in some of my progress videos, if you go to my most recent progress video, I posted it in the shorts on YouTube. When I hit the double bicep like this, if you watch my nipple in the video as I go up, you'll see it kind of jiggle. It'll jiggle just a bit. It's jiggling because there's a little fat cell right there. There's like a little gland. It's not connected to the muscle. And so as my arm goes up and the motion carries the nipple up, when it stops, it acts like a little tiny titty. That's what I have. I have 2 tiny little titties courtesy of not being able to properly manage my estrogen and my prolactin. This is not a joke, guys. It will be permanent and you will have to get surgery to have it repaired. So the way to prevent this is to use an aromatase inhibitor. Anytime you start a testosterone cycle, whether it's TRT, a 500 milligram per week blast, maybe you are king dingling and you decided to pin a gram of test right out the gate just to see what would happen, you need to go get your estrogen checked no later than 4 weeks into the cycle. You will probably already have full-blown gyno at 4 weeks. The problem is checking it at 2 weeks, it might not have peaked yet. You will probably have E2 symptoms within the first 2 weeks. They will be full-blown by week 4. You must go get your estrogen checked to find out what the level is. If the level is above the normal physiological range, you are in danger. Do not listen to anyone who tells you that you are not. Do not listen to anyone. I don't give a shit how big of a name they are. I don't care how many Olympias they won. I don't care how many people they've coached to an Olympia. Anyone who tells you that, oh, well, if you have a really high testosterone level, you can have a really high estrogen level. It won't really cause you any problems. Bullshit. They are fucking lying to you. Your prostate does not give 2 fucks how much muscle you have on your body. You can and will get prostate cancer from having high estrogen. I don't care if you have 10,000 nanograms of testosterone per deciliter in your serum concentration. If you have a 60 fucking E2, you can still get gyno, water retention, crying, sobbing, emotionality, Birkenstocks, hanging out at leftist agendas, voting for feminist agendas. You might even decide to go get in the pool and swim with Leah Thomas and become a woman. Estrogen is not something to fuck around with, guys. Do not let anybody convince you it should be high. It should never be high. Never, never, never should it be high. So if your E2 is above the top end of the reference range, you need to use one of 3, really only 2 aromatase inhibitors to get your estrogen into line. I recommend that you start by understanding how aromatase inhibitors work. There are lots of ways to combat this problem. We are going to get into those ways in this video. To me, the most basic beginner thing is that if you are starting out on TRT, you may never want to run other steroid molecules. You may not want to run like a Primo, which has AI activity, or Masteron, which has SERM activity, which we'll get to in a minute, selective estrogen receptor modulator activity. You may never intend to run, 5 compounds like I do. So you need to get familiar with using a drug like Adex or Aromasin. Each of these drugs has their advantage. I think that the advantages and disadvantages are massively overblown. Some people will tell you that Arimidex negatively affects your cholesterol. It's like, who gives a shit? Everything we take negatively affects our cholesterol. My cholesterol's 280 right now. It's probably 300. Who cares? Cholesterol's part of the fucking program to me. Adex is a very, very good drug. It's very fast acting, and it is a great drug to dial in your estrogen with, because if you go too low, you can fix it quickly. If you go too high, you can fix it quickly. You don't get crashed and stuck for a very long time. So I need, for example, on 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate per week and 500 IUs of HCG twice a week, my body requires 1.5 milligrams of Adex per week. That gives me a 20 pico, it puts me right in the middle. Whatever test they pulled that first time, this has been confirmed by labs. 1.5 milligrams of Adex puts me right in the center of the E2 range at 200 milligrams of test per week. If I raise my test to 500 milligrams per week, I start making estrogen out of fucking control. I have not backed this up by a blood work test to my knowledge. I generally take about 3.5 milligrams of Adex technically I need 3 milligrams of Adex on 500 milligrams of test only. That is coming by feel. That could be on the high end or low end of the range. But I have run 500 milligrams of testosterone only at 3 milligrams of Arimidex and have had no gyno symptoms, no otherwise, no symptoms. But that's not the smart way to do it. The smart way to do it is to go get your blood work and find out exactly how much Adex or Aromasin you need to put your estrogen where you want it, to make sure that it is within the reference range. If you are only running testosterone and its derivatives, like testosterone, D-ball, you 19, like nandrolone, aroma, any drug that aromatizes. You should know this. Before you take a drug, you should get on Wikipedia, type in the name of your drug, and look up to see if it's going to aromatize. If it aromatizes, that means it makes estrogen, and you have to account for that. Every time you increase your dose or you add another aromatizable compound to the mix, you have to recalculate how much Arimidex you need at that given dose in order to offset the creation of estrogen, or you will begin to get symptoms. Water break. So, this is how you get estrogen into your body. There are multiple types of estrogen. If you take testosterone, aromatase will convert that into 17-beta estradiol. If you take mint, for example, like I'm taking right now, mint is aromatized from 7-alpha methyl 19-nortestosterone into 7-alpha methyl estradiol, 7-alpha methyl E2. 7-alpha methyl E2 will bind to the androgen receptor, but it binds at a different affinity and it converts at a different rate. So regular testosterone converts at one rate, mint converts at a different rate. Something like D-ball converts at a different rate. D-ball produces something called 17-alpha methyl estradiol, and that shit is incredibly potent. If you are taking D-ball, you 100% need an aromatase inhibitor, and a strong one. D-ball can cause the creation of breast tissue within 4 days' time. 17 alpha methyl estradiol is incredibly potent. It can cause E2 symptoms very rapidly before you can even catch it. You can be full blown. I have had my E2 score come back in a range of up to 40. I have had a 179 fucking around with D-ball, and I was puking every morning like a pregnant woman. I have an entire video on my channel, High Estrogen Turned Me Into a Pregnant Woman. Go watch it. So any drug that aromatizes will take advantage of aromatase, and it will turn into estradiol. All of the various types of estradiol are bioavailable, and they bind at different affinities with different rates, and this is all something that you have to experience. You have to figure out with trial and error. It is worth mentioning that not all of these forms of estrogen are detectable on blood work. And this is what gets you in trouble when you start to become a veteran steroid user like I am. I'm taking mint right now. I'm also taking testosterone. If I go get an E2 sensitive test, which I just did, and found out that my total E2 was twice the top end of the reference range, that test will not detect 7 alpha methyl estradiol. So I have twice the top end of the reference range of what we're going to call normal estrogen, and then some amount of methyl estradiol that is causing estrogenic side effects that I can't see on the test, because it is a test that is sensitive to look for only just 17 beta estradiol. Now, you can run a non-sensitive test and get an idea of all of the estrogens in your system, but there are a lot of compounds that will come up on that test that are not estrogen. If you're taking DECA, it will show up on that test. If you're taking Trenbolone, I think it will show up on that test. Anything that's progestogenic, I believe, will show up on a non-sensitive E2 test. So you get this crazy fucking high number. It doesn't really tell you anything. It's picking up estrone, estrone, and there's another one. There's estradiol, estrone, some other estriol. I think it's estriol. Those are the 3 estrogens in the body. We don't really need to worry about estrone and estriol. They're really wholly irrelevant. All you really care about is that you need to not make the mistake that I made. Do not think that your feel meter is 100% accurate when it comes to determining whether or not your estrogen is high. If you are running any amount of testosterone, you need to dial yourself in with an aromatase inhibitor backed up by blood work at any dose you are likely to run. And then you need to stick to those doses. So like I have myself dialed in at 200. I have myself dialed in at 500. That's why I don't like to go above 500. If I should ever decide to go up to 750 or 1,000 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone, I will need to redial in through blood work exactly how much estrogen my body makes at those higher doses so that I can properly dose my AI. This is of utmost importance to maintaining your health, longevity, functionality, and getting the best out of your cycles. Whoo! That's part 1. Part 2, prolactin. Prolactin is another female hormone that can really fuck up your day. Prolactin is produced by the agonization of the progesterone receptor. There are a number of drugs that are either known to or suspected to agonize the progesterone receptor. Notice I did not say antagonize, I said agonize. Those are 2 different words. If a drug agonizes the progesterone receptor, when a drug agonizes a receptor, it activates it, turns it on. Okay, when you flip the light switch, you agonized the light switch. You turned it on. If you antagonize the receptor, it means you turn it off. Light switch off. Antagonizing the receptor makes it not work. Antagonizing it makes it do its work. And one of the things that the progesterone receptor will do when it is agonized is that it will produce prolactin. Prolactin is what causes women to lactate. It will cause prolactin-induced gynecomastia. How do I know this? I will tell you. My 3rd cycle, I decided to run nandrolone decanoate, also known as DECA. I ran 500 milligrams of test and 300 milligrams of DECA. And while I was running this cycle, I knew that I needed 3 milligrams of Arimidex to dial myself in at 500 milligrams of testosterone. I also knew that nandrolone was going to aromatize at about 20% the rate of testosterone. So I knew that I was going to need to have a little bit more AI in the mix to offset the aromatization from nandrolone. Unfortunately, I can't know exactly how much because nandrolone does not aromatize in 7-beta estradiol. I forget what it aromatizes into actually. It's not terribly relevant. It does aromatize, and so I think it's nortestosterone. I tapped up my camera. So nandrolone does aromatize. I don't know. I couldn't actually find what it aromatizes into, so I cannot recall specific. I don't think it aromatizes into 17-beta estradiol. I don't think you can pick up this estradiol on an E2 sensitive test. So anytime you're taking nandrolone, you're doing a bit of guessing as to how much extra aromatase inhibition you need. So what I did in my cycle is I started noticing that I was getting gyno, and so I increased my estrogen. I increased my aromatase inhibitor, and a week went by and I still had gyno. So I increased it again and again, and I started feeling like absolute dog shit despite the fact that I had very puffy, swollen nipples. So I went and got my blood work checked, and guess what? My estrogen was in the toilet. It came back as less than 5 picograms per milliliter on a range of 5 to like 41 or something. So I had crashed my estrogen into the toilet because I kept thinking that the gyno, the puffy nipples that I was getting from the nandrolone was being caused by estrogen, and it was not. Luckily, this cycle ended. Everything went back to normal. I took the nandrolone out of my system. I got back on TRT. I was running nice and stable on TRT, 200 milligrams of test, 1.5 milligrams of ADEX. In comes my next cycle. My next cycle was testosterone, trenbolone, and anavar, if I remember correctly. So I start running trenbolone, and I up my testosterone dose to 500 milligrams of test, and I think I started at 200 milligrams of tren, and lo and behold, started fucking getting gyno again. So I increased my fucking Arimidex dose, and the gyno continued. I increased my Arimidex dose again, and the gyno continued. For the second cycle in a row, I went and got blood work, and I had crashed my estrogen into the toilet. And by this time, the new gyno that I had formed from the DECA cycle and this now trenbolone cycle became permanent. So what you guys see sometimes in my pictures, anytime you see gyno, residual gyno, like if I'm not complaining about it, and I hit like when I hit this overhead, the double bicep pose, maybe I can make you see it right now. If I hit the double bicep pose, watch my nipples and see if they jiggle. I don't know if it'll do it here, but there's tissue. If I grab it, that whole thing that I'm pinching right there is a big gland. It extends all the way across here, and it is very swollen right now because I have high E2. I've got them behind both of my nipples. They are right now they are approximately the size of very small grapes. This is permanent. It will not go away. The reason it exists is because I did not know during my tren and nandrolone cycles that both of those drugs are progestogenic. They activate the progesterone receptor, and the progesterone receptor will, in fact, produce prolactin, especially on trenbolone. Trenbolone has a very, very high, Trenbolone has a very, very high binding affinity for the progesterone receptor. Nandrolone does as well, but it's to a lesser degree. This is outside the purview of this video, but one of the other problems that nandrolone can cause is that nandrolone 5-alpha reduces into a weaker DHT called dihydronandrolone. We're going to save that for another video when we talk about 5-alpha reduction. Today we're just talking about estrogen and prolactin. So if you decide to add a 19-nor compound, that would be DECA, MPP, trenbolone, I believe oxymethylone, anadrol, has some progestogenic activity. Anytime you add a new compound to your cycle, look it up on Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a wealth of information. It tells you all of the chemical names. It tells you the classes. It tells you the elimination half-life, the duration half-life, the bioavailability. It will tell you if it's hepatotoxic, kidney toxic. It's not. but it will tell you all of this information. And so if you're reading along and you see that, for example, a particular drug is progestogenic, you're probably going to have a prolactin problem. If you see the drug aromatases into estrogen, you are going to have an estrogen problem. Primarily the drugs that you're going to deal with as far as prolactin is concerned are the ones that I've already named. So the 19 NOR compounds, mint, nandrolone in both forms, DECA and MPP, trenbolone. Somebody asked me the other day what I thought about trenbolone. There's actually a drug called metribolone, which is 17 alpha methyl trenbolone. Holy fuck. It is purported to be the most potent androgen ever created by man. And it is also, I think, not produced by anybody who has half of a fucking brain, because it is also purported to be extraordinarily hepatotoxic. So just don't with that. But I'm getting sidetracked. So if you were taking trenbolone, nandrolone, mint, or possibly oxymethylone, you are going to need to prepare yourself to deal with prolactin. Prolactin can cause, when prolactin is high, it can cause prolactin-induced gyno, and it can cause decadic. That's what causes decadic. There's so much bullshit in the community. Well, you won't get decadic if you run the proper ratio of testosterone to nandrolone. Bullshit. You will get decadic 100% if you are prone to it if your prolactin level gets too high. That is what it's caused by, period. The court is not in session. This is a definitive fact. If you let your prolactin levels get out of control to the high or the low, you will definitively have problems. You can get this level checked. There are some anecdotal pieces of data. I want to be transparent about this because I have not done this study myself. Some people claim that if you are running trenbolone and you get your prolactin level checked, that you can see the high prolactin on that test. They will say that it does not reflect when you're running nandrolone or like DECA or MPP. I don't believe that's true, but I have not seen it in practice. If you have run a cycle that included DECA or MPP without trenbolone, and you have gotten blood work and your blood work came back with high prolactin, please post here to prove what I'm saying, that these drugs that are progestogenic will agonize the progesterone receptor and will produce prolactin. Now, how do we stop this? Well, there's one really good way and a lot of stupid fucking ways in my estimation. A lot of people will tell you P5P will, which is vitamin B6, will stop prolactin. I have never had success with this. It's possible because the times that I've tried to have success with this, I was running trenbolone at very high doses. Some people claim that if you're running tren like down 100 milligrams a week, that you can get away with P5P, and that 600 milligrams, I think a day, some crazy shit, of P5P will stop the release of prolactin. What I do is I use a drug that is specifically designed for treating prolactinomas, which are benign tumors that grow on the pituitary gland, and they cause the body to massively produce prolactin. This drug is called cabergoline. It is a very, very good, very well tolerated drug. It has a very long half-life. Cabergoline is excellent for controlling prolactin. It is the only drug I have ever used. But just recently, I got myself into the reverse of the situation that I got into in the beginning. So I just got through explaining to you how easy it is to determine whether your estrogen is high when you're only running testosterone. When you add 19 NOR compounds, now you've got prolactin and estrogen, and it's hard to tell which one is causing the problem, which caused me to crash my estrogen. Then I figured out that the actual causal factor was not that my estrogen was high, but that my prolactin was high, and I started using cabergoline to offset gyno-induced, prolactin-induced gyno. High prolactin levels also caused me to have decadic, and they caused me to go into the deepest, darkest depression known to man. It is like a dark abyss that you cannot crawl out of. this is usually the reason that guys hate trenbolone down the road. If you are not taking if you are not taking a drug like cabergoline and you run trenbolone for long periods of time, you will probably notice that you go into a very dark, deep-seated depression, usually around the 8 to 10 week mark. This is because your prolactin is out of control, and if you just get it back into control, you will feel better rapidly. The problem is that without blood work and in situations where blood work will not always tell you what hormone is high, you are effectively always running a science fair experiment. So when I started using mint, what I should have done was trusted the paperwork. What I could have done is at least have gotten my E2 level checked, which I eventually did. I could have gotten it checked earlier. It's not always helpful again because my E2 could have come back normal, but I could still have estrogenic effects because it doesn't detect the 7-alpha-methyl E2. So that's one of the reasons I often don't get estrogen and prolactin checked, because they can cause the same set of problems. So if your estrogen is high or low, it can cause ED. If your prolactin is high or low, it can cause ED. So it's a total cluster when you're running these drugs together. You have if you have ED on a cycle, it could be 4 different things. High or low E2, high or low prolactin, or some combination of the two, and that's what I just got through going through. I thought in this case I had high estrogen, and I thought I had low estrogen, and in fact I had high estrogen and low prolactin, and it broke my D game for weeks. Big shout out to Convulsor for sticking with me on that, and basically holding my hand the whole way through till we got to a solution. I am now massively dosing Aromatase, trying to get back to normal. So these are the 2 hormones that you have to fight against when you're running cycles. These cycles this is going to be true anytime you're running any amount of testosterone and any amount of 19-nor compounds. If you want to run the safest cycles, well, even then, there's a couple other variables that I should add into the mix. Let's say that you have decided not to run 19-nor drugs and you're only going to run, for example, the test, but you want a little bit extra in your cycle. Maybe somebody's convinced you that you shouldn't be taking a lot of aromatase inhibitor, and so you only are going to run 300 milligrams of test, and you decide, hey, I want a total androgen load of a gram, but I can only run 300 milligrams of test, so I'm going to put in 700 milligrams of Masteron. This is a fucking bad idea, because Masteron has SERM-like or SERM activity. Masteron was originally created for ER-positive breast cancers. It is designed as a selective estrogen receptor modulator. It selects the estrogen receptor in and around the breast tissue. And so what it is really good at doing is masking the signs of high E2. This is almost certainly what just happened to me. I was running 500 milligrams of testosterone, 400 milligrams of Masteron. My estrogen got high, but I didn't get gyno. Or I had some, it looked kind of like gyno, but it wasn't. And so I thought, oh my God, this is prolactin gyno. So because I thought the gyno was caused by prolactin, I started jacking up my cabergoline dose and knocked my prolactin in the toilet. When in fact, what was actually going on is I was having high E2, but the Masteron dose was sufficient to mask it in my breast tissue. So while my nipples looked a little off, they weren't behaving the way they normally would with high estrogen. Typically, estrogen-induced gyno will cause itchy, painful lumps behind the nipples. This does not happen with prolactin. Prolactin usually just causes puffy nipples that are sensitive and can lactate. Typically, if it's E2 induced, there will be a nodule that will be itching and hurt. I was not experiencing the painful itching lumps, and so I thought that I had prolactin-induced gyno. The problem was that I was taking Masteron, and it masked some of the estrogenic side effects. Masteron and other DHT derivatives like oxandrolone, which is Anavar, any of the DHT derivatives, Proviron I was running along at the same time, these are drying compounds. They prevent your body from holding on to a lot of water. One of the side effects of high E2 is water retention, is bloat. It's possible that the reason that I didn't experience a lot of bloat on this cycle is because I was running large quantities of DHT derivatives that were pushing the water off my frame that the high E2 was trying to store. So you see, guys, this is a total cluster. Anybody who tries to make you think that running gear and changing compounds in and out and running large quantities of different compounds is an easy thing to do, it is not. This is always a science fair experiment. You are always tinkering with something, and a lot of it is a guessing game. A lot of it does come down to feel. The problem that you have to understand is that feel alone is not enough because there are too many things that can mask symptoms. If you had decided to run Primobolan instead of Masteron, Primobolan has AI activity. Primobolan can act as an aromatase inhibitor. So if you're running, say, 500 milligrams of test, and you know that you need 3 milligrams of Arimidex in order to offset that amount of aromatase expression, and then you add 500 milligrams of Primo to the mix, you're probably going to crash your E2 into the toilet. Because now you have added more aromatase inhibition into the mix than you realize, because Primo is a mild AI. I do not think it is a strong AI. I think it is mild, but it is an AI. So if you've already got yourself dialed into the sweet spot with Arimidex and you add a large amount of Primobolan to the mix, you're probably going to go low. You're probably going to crash your estrogen. So these are all the things that you have to worry for. So when guys like John Jewett will tell you, hey man, you know, the thing is that we want to run the smallest amount of testosterone we can because we don't want to be having to deal with aromatase. We don't want to be taking an aromatase inhibitor. So raise your testosterone level until you start to get gyno symptoms, then step it back a notch and add a whole bunch of Primobolan. What? You're going to crash dude's E2 if you do that. Why would you have somebody run a disproportionately high amount of Primobolan to testosterone if they've already dialed their testosterone into the sweet spot? Now, this makes sense if you're trying to run Primobolan instead of an AI. If John Jewett had said, hey, run 500 milligrams of test, which is going to make a fuck ton of estradiol, but don't worry because we're going to run 500 milligrams or 700 milligrams of Primo to offset it, that would make sense to me. But telling a guy to dial his testosterone dose in to where he doesn't need an AI, and then on top of that, take an AI in the form of Primobolan, you're going to crash his estrogen in the toilet. I don't know how these guys become major big name coaches spewing bullshit like this. It's absolutely beyond me. So this video has gone on very long. The reason it has gone on so long is because I wanted to walk you through a bunch of real world experiences instead of all of like Vigorous, and a lot of these guys will get up and they'll give you all the science data. They can put all the little words on the screen. They can tell you that this one converts to this. They can give you all of this information. But to me, that information gets lost in a sea of other information that we're trying to retain. So what I'm trying to impress upon you guys is that while this is science, it is very inaccurate science. Everybody makes estrogen and prolactin at different levels. What I may need to combat 500 milligrams of test is not what the guy next to me may need. There are no cookie cutter approaches to this. I get this in my DMs and in comments all the time. Somebody will be like, hey bro, I'm getting ready to run a 500 milligram test cycle. How much ADEX should I use? I don't have any idea. No idea. Your body's different than mine. I take 3 milligrams, but don't just do that because you could go high, you could go low, you don't know. You have to do the work. This is not, bodybuilding is not like most hobbies. Like anybody can go sit on the side of a bank with a $15, $20 Walmart rod in one of these little stock ponds in your local city and catch some little box-sized catfish. Anybody can do this. It doesn't take a lot of effort. If you're a natty and you just like to go to the gym to get a pump and lift some weights and take up all the space that the real bodybuilders are trying to fucking use, you just want to be a complete fucking nuisance to everybody around you, cool, man, you can do that, and you won't have to worry about any of these things. If you want to be a competitive bodybuilder, or if you want to have the best unnatural physique that you can have, which is 90% of the people you see online, including Jeff Nippard and what was his name? What's the skinny guy that I'm always, it doesn't even matter. Oh, Athletes X. Athletes X is definitely on gear. Everybody's on gear. 90% of the people that you see posing for photos, they're on some kind of gear. If they've got cap delts, gear. If they've got six-pack abs, gear. Everybody's on gear. So don't buy into the bullshit that you can have one of these IG bodies and not be on gear. They're all taking some shit, I fucking promise you. And they're all fucking lying to you about it. So if you decide to go down this pathway, you need to go down it prepared to do a lot of experimenting. Prepare to deal with a lot of bloat and water retention when you F it up. Prepare to deal with broke D game and not be able to satisfy your girl, not be able to finish, not be able to get it up, or lose it in the middle of the act. These are all very real life things that can, almost certainly will happen to you if you run gear long enough. And the best and only way often to fix it is to pay attention to your body, understand the compounds you're using, and make small micro adjustments to your protocol so that you can try to dial things into the sweet spot and get blood work as frequently as possible, if for no other reason to have something to back it up, to connect it to. If I had been getting my bloods done more frequently, I would not have gotten into the situation that I just got into with this mint and put the whole Discord community through hell, and some of my friends and my wife and my family and everybody. So there you have it. That is everything you need to know about managing estrogen and prolactin when you are running a steroid cycle of any kind. There is a lot of minutia you could break into this. You could choose to overthink this and get into, well, which aromatase inhibitor is better. There's a lot of nuance to this. What I just gave you are the real world personal experiences that I've had of all of the problems that you can run into with running these compounds, so that hopefully you will learn from this and you will have fewer problems than I do. Please do not start blowing me up on IG and just stop asking me how much you should run. I don't know. Figure it out for yourself. I had to figure it out for myself. Everybody has to figure it out for yourself. And last but not least, of course, as always, this is not medical advice. I am not a doctor. I am telling you only my personal experiences. Do not break the law in your country. Do not buy illegal drugs. Do not do steroids. You probably will never look half as good as I do, even if you blast 10 grams a fucking week, because I have freak fucking genetics, apparently. So, there you have it. As always, thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.